name is Sara Pearce, and I'm a Cincinnati artist, and I specialize in doing fine art collages. And I use only the original paper, which means antique and vintage paper, and only copyright-free images on them. I've been passionate about printing and paper my whole life. I started collecting books when I was a kid. In college, I collected more. I've had a lot of different careers, and eventually ended up feeling like this one brought them all together. So my undergraduate degree was in English and art history. Then I ended up working at a film library, and I'm dating myself because that was a film library, not a video library, and thought, well, if I'm going to be in libraries, I should get a library degree. So then I went and got a master's in library science. Meanwhile, I knew a lot about baking because my mother did all kinds of baking and pop-up shops and all kinds of things, and all the kids in my family, we all learned how to bake. So a friend of mine knew that, and she worked at this wonderful newspaper that's no longer around, the Philadelphia Bulletin, which at the time was one of the 10 largest newspapers in the country. And their assistant food editor was going on maternity leave, so she asked me if I could fill in. And that sort of changed the rest of my life, because I did it, the person never came back. I ended up quitting my job that I had at the time, which was in a county library system. I was doing public relations for them, and ended up going into newspapers. And then I went to chef school while I was working at the paper, because I thought if I'm going to be a food writer, I should learn more about cooking than I do. Did that, then started moving around to lots of different newspapers. Ended up in Cincinnati twice. The first time I came as the food editor and restaurant critic. Left to go to the Orlando Sentinel and USA Today, and then ended up back here. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and so is my husband, but he liked it so much here, he wanted to move back here. Anyway, about 10 years ago now, I took a buyout from the paper and tried to figure out what I would do next. And I knew that I was interested in making cards and designing cards, because I had been doing that for a long time, and I had been using old images on the cards from my husband's mother's family. Antique postcards, all kinds of things. They were coming over on the boat from Germany, and people just loved them. So I thought, I think I'm going to do card making. But right before I left the paper, I was writing about art, and I discovered all these collage artists. And I had done collage way, way back, decades ago. But the whole idea of those old images, and I wanted to tell a story, and using my hands to do it kind of brought together all my previous careers. And I love doing the research on the paper. And sometimes it takes me a long time to do something because I get really stuck reading things. Anyway, I've been pretty lucky and done a lot of interesting things. At the moment, I've had shows. I had a museum show out in Colorado the year before last, a solo show. And this year, I am the artist in residence at the Mercantile Library. And then I was really surprised to be asked to work on a violin for the chamber orchestra for Summermusik. And so I've been doing that, and as you can see, I'm sort of in the midst of it, going through, getting rid of things, adding things, going through all my paper, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this violin. And finally I came up with the idea of using these big vintage illustrations of flowers, which I cut out. And they're illustrations from an antique book, and I'm going to wrap them around the violin. There also will be music, there'll be insects, there'll be all kinds of things, birds, maybe some animals, weaving in and out. And getting ready to glue any moment now. But one of the things I do, which is, I have to admit, a little compulsive, all the white edges of the paper that you see, I actually ink all of the edges so you never see the white of the paper, and then it looks like it's flat. And so sometimes people think my collages are actually prints because they never see that there are those layers of paper. Sometimes on collages that are hanging and are framed, I'll let things pop out to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. But what I love about a project like this is just going through everything. I rediscover things I forgot in my vast collection here, and it's just kind of fun. It's interesting to see what happens from the very beginning to the end, because it rarely is ever what I thought it was going to be.